and resolve them and things like this. But I will get started on the teamwork lecture. So I have shared my screen. I'm going to assume you can see it. So this is the last lecture about teamwork. And Git is very useful for teamwork. And when you do Git projects or do it in teamwork, you often have 3 types of branches for a project or for a specific release. There will be the main or the master branch, and that exists for the entire project. You very likely will have a development branch or staging branch that you use for developing or preparing new releases. And that exists for that release of the project, and then it is merged to main or master. And then you will have feature branches that are created just for some feature development, and that can later be merged to the development or staging branch if you decide that the feature is as good as you hoped it would be. So that is a very common way of working. So in this session, as I said, you will be working in small groups. We'll probably have 2 to 3 people, but you can be more if you want to. But much more will probably not be so useful here in the beginning. Each group will then go to a Zoom breakout room and work together, and you will be using GitHub for the remote repository. And if you didn't set up SSH keys yesterday, you should do so today. We still have the lecture notes for how to do that. You will have to do that since GitHub requires it. And to begin with, we will just look around GitHub a little bit, try creating repositories, creating and editing files on the site. The rest of the exercises, you will work together on a small project. It will be done from the command line with GitHub as the remote repository. And there is a total of 9 exercises. The first couple of exercises are only for those who have not yet created their SSH keys. So in these exercises, we will only use a few commands. And these have all been mentioned before in the course. But as a refresher, I will just briefly mention them here. So there's git fetch. This is a primary command used to download contents from a remote repository. Example, your teammate may have created a new feature branch. They have pushed it to the remote repository, but you don't yet have it in your local repository. Git push, the same as git merge main from inside the remote repository. It's used to upload local changes to a remote repository. Git pull. This fetches the latest changes from the current branch from a remote, then applies the changes to your local copy of the branch. It's the same as doing a fetch and a merge. So this is how you would do a git push. And in most cases, you just say git push. You don't need to give the remote repo in most cases, unless you are pushing to several different ones. I will handle the questions in a very short moment. Git push is where the default behavior is pushing to repository origin and the same branch as the local. So that is the most common case. So before pushing, as mentioned before in this course, this is how it looks. After pushing, both are pointing to the same. So you now have the same in your local as they have in the, or they have the same in the remote as you have in the local. And this just shows how it looks when you do a git push. And as you can try and say git push origin instead of just git push. And you will mention the name of this remote repo and the branch you're pushing to in that case. But in most cases, git push will totally suffice. Git pull, again, this is only if you're pulling from a different repo. Otherwise, it's just git pull. And if you have forgotten to pull before staging and committing new stuff, and maybe your colleague added something in between, you can try with git pull minus minus rebase or git pull minus minus rebase remote. It fetches this remote content, but it doesn't create a new merge commit. And this will usually work unless you have both worked on the exact same part of the project. So assume this situation. It looks like this here. There are two branches, and you do a git pull, and it looks like this, and that should be fine. So you pull from a remote repo, and you have a new file. And this file is not something your coworker has. It's not something that conflicts with anything. Git handles this easily and just does a fast forward. And here are some examples that show how you can create a new branch. You can also just do the git checkout minus B and the name of the branch. That is the more common way of doing it. But there is also this command. And then you change to it. And then you can try and create a file on your new branch. After this, I suggest you always check the status with git status and do git log, see how things look. And as you can see, you then get a list of the commits here with git log. And if you add these extra flags here, the ones you earlier created an alias for with graph, then you can also get it to show how the tree looks like. So, and then you add your file, you stage it, you commit it, and then you have added it to your new branch. And you can always do a check to see that you are on the branch that you think you are, which is important to do, of course, before you merged. So you say git branch, it lists your branches, and it also marks which one you are on. And that is good to do if you have several branches, so you are not applying something in the wrong place. Also, make sure you are on the right branch before you apply something. If it's something that should be applied to your feature branch, you don't want to apply it directly to main or master. So it's always good to check, just so you're sure. And again, do git status, see if you have anything to commit or if the working tree is clean. Do git log. Again, this is what you had made an alias for, to get both the list of commits and the graph. And if you push your changes with git push origin minus u, your branch name, or git push minus u origin head, then you should be able to push it just to that. So let's try and check the status again. So these commands, you will try all of them, go through them in these exercises. And when you do the exercises, good idea to do git status and git log regularly, and also git branch to see where you are. And that is the main thing I want to say here. So as an example, if you are merging branches, you will merge them from the command line. It's also possible to do it on GitHub, but it's in this case, we will do it on the command line. It is actually easier. So the first thing you would do is ask to get all branches listed. When you give minus minus all flag to git branch, you will also get the remote ones. So you will see all the remote ones also, and maybe some of those you have and some of those you don't have. You can see this one here I have main, I have my new branch, I have my test branch, but I don't have box branch. And so they are created by me or by another user for testing. and it marks here which branch I am on. So it's good to check sometimes what exists. And then when you want to merge, you always go to the branch you want to merge into. If it is something you are merging to the main part of the project, you would merge it into main or master. And so you check out that branch, main or master, depending on what it's called. In this case, it's called main because that is what GitHub uses. Do the merge. And you'd say git merge, as we saw before, and then the name of the branch you want to merge to the one you are on. It will open the editor as you saw previously. You can write a commit message on why the merge should happen. That is often a good idea. And then git will merge. And if there is a problem, it will tell you there's a conflict you will have to resolve. But if it's good, then it does the merge. And I do, in this example, git status, and you could sometimes see you are on the branch main, and that your branch is ahead by 2 commits. But you don't need to commit anything. It's just that you are ahead of origin main. But if you want to put it to commit your stuff, then you would say git add and git commit, and then it will tell you here that you have some stuff that you want to push. So you do git push, and then it will, depending on how you have set it up, it will ask a passphrase still for the key. And this key is the one you created with these SSH keys. And you should set a passphrase when you did that, or a password. And GitHub will then prompt you. There will be this key you can see here. This is actually the old version of the key. It doesn't matter. It will list the path to and the name of your key so that you know which key it is that you need to give the password to. So you give it accepts, and then it does the push. And then afterwards you check, you're fine, you are now up to date with origin main. So all is good. So this exercise, the first one, it is only for those who have not already set up GitHub. And in this case, you actually probably want to do this if you have never used GitHub. I mean, you created your user yesterday, and you created also multi-factor authentication. And here you can test this on GitHub. Try and play around with it. I don't know if you did that. If you didn't, then do this first exercise. It is simply teaching you how you create a repository, how you create a file, how you add it, and things like this on GitHub. And I will just briefly show. I will just go here and be me. So you will go to your GitHub repo, you are signed in, and then you can say, I would like to create a new repository. And you can do that here. There's a green button, you can click it, and then you create a new repository. And the owner will be you, and then you can call it something. My Git repo, for instance. It doesn't matter what you call it. So it tells you if it's available, and it is, so I will just go with that. You can add a description. I don't need one right now. Then you can pick either public or private. If you're going to work together with someone, then probably you want it public, but you can also make it private and then just add your coworkers to it there also. They need to be added, the people who you want to work with. But public is the default, and I'm going to go with this. Then it asks you, do you want to add a README file? And we can just do that. Otherwise, you have to create something yourself. do you want to add a git ignore? And you may remember that Pedro talked about these .git ignore files. And it is used, as you may remember, to add these types of files that you do not want to be handled by the repository, that you do not want to be uploaded if you have those yourself or things like this. It's often temporary files and things like this, but there is a number of templates because these files you probably don't want. They will look different depending on what will mainly be in your repository. So it could be that you would pick for C or something, but I'm not going to make one because this is just going to be a random repository. You can choose a license. This is mainly relevant if you're going to make a project that will contain something that you think other people may use. So you could pick GNU, General Public License or something. Again, I will not do anything here. And then one important thing, it will set main as the default branch. And
Birgitte,
yes,
these git ignore and the license thing were too tricky for me, both of them. How do we select? I mean, based on what we should choose the template or the license that I don't understand.
if say you have a repository that mainly contains C files, then you probably will pick a template for C. And then it will add the regular files that you would have that you do not want to include if you're using C. I mean, each language or each project, it will depend on what you have in it. I mean, for instance, I have a repository with Markdown files that I'm also using to create GitHub pages. And there I have a git ignore that I don't want it to include the site build files that I have locally. So it would simply depend on what it is you put in your repository. And
Okay.
so it's in many cases you just create it yourself. But this is just an extra help that it will create one for you with the typical files to ignore if you have this type of a repository. As for the license, if it's going to be a repository where you just play around in now here, you don't need to put a license. If it's going to contain a project that is something you will share with others, if you are developing some software, then you can pick one. And for our courses, we also sometimes pick one just to tell people that, for instance, GNU General Public, then it will mean that people are allowed to reuse the material you have. And I think they also have to give credit. There is a list where it is explained what these different licenses means. But you do not need to pick one for this. But if you're making something yourself later, you may want a license on your project so that people finding it know what they are allowed to do with the files. Can they reuse? Do they have to ask? Should they give credit and things like this? So, but let me go with this just for fun. And again, I will set it sets main as the default branch. You can change it in the settings, but it is important that you use the same when if you're working together in a project, you need the branch to be called the same. It's just it needs to know which one to push to. So either pick main or master, just not both at the same time. And I can show you where you can change it. And of course, I will just create this and I will show you. So I'm creating the repository. And this is how it will look as default. Now I picked a git ignore file. I will open it so you can see what it put into it. If you are using C, it will probably have object files. Maybe you don't want to include those things like this. Pre-compile stuff, libraries. But this, I think you don't need to put, so there will not be such a file unless you pick one. The license, I now picked GNU General Public License, and it put one here. Again, if you don't pick a license, it will not have such a file here. The README file, I said I wanted it to create one. If you didn't, there will not be anything here. The content of the readme.md file will be shown here, so you can use it to describe your project. So you can see here, this is how it looks. You click on the file, and here there is a small pen that you click in order to edit a file. And you can see it's markdown. So I could write something here. And then I pick commit changes. And as a default, it will just make a message that's called update readme. And that works fine here. But otherwise, write something just like you did before. And an extended description, you can do that as well. And then you choose which email you commit with if you have more than one. And you usually will just commit it directly to main in case you don't want to create a new branch. I don't want to, I'll just commit it. And now there's text here. And if you go to the repo, there's now text here. The repo has settings. I'll just do this quickly. And then I will let you go to the exercises, and I will handle questions as well. But this is the name of the repo. You can change it. And this is the name of the branch. Again, you can change it. And one thing you need to change is when you are working with people, there should be, let's see, collaborators, yes. And then sometimes when you are working on GitHub, it will ask for your authentication code, the multi-factor you set up. It won't do it all the time, but it will do it from time to time. So now it asks me. And then it says you haven't invited collaborators yet. And when you're going to do teamwork, you will add people. And you can either search by username. If you know the username, you can try give the full name, or you can try give an email. Working together, you do something like this. I could probably even find myself, even though I am myself. No, it doesn't find yourself. Okay, but write in the username of your colleague when you're working together in this group. And that's how you find them and you add them. When you have added people, you need to set them to be at least moderator in order to be able to submit to it, or probably admin otherwise. So, but this should be all you need to do here. And this is what you did here in the first exercise. The second exercise was the one you don't need to do if you have set up keys already. Otherwise, go through this and then add them. Third exercise, play around with clone, push, and pull. Then fourth exercise, there will be the teamwork. And this is where you will go to breakout rooms in groups of 2-3 people. And the rest will be the same. There's branches and merging, pull requests, and you will get to do some examples where you get conflicts and try to resolve them. So it will simply be trying to work together as a team, creating a small project, and working as you would day to day in a project. So, okay, I will stop this, and then I will take questions.